3, 2, 1, go.
Look, I just mean there was a time where I had more subscribers than you, and then I fumbled that because no one cared.
Yeah, you're just not very likable. Oh, Corey, we went live. Let's keep it.
I'm arrogant, childish, and immature.
I want to hurt you, Corey.
Oh.
I don't like you that much, so...
Well, Justin, before we do this, do you want to do your usual pre-intro intro?
Yes, I will. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another live recording of Tapcaf Transmissions, the only Star Wars podcast on the internet. So you guys aren't confused, we record these for audio podcast listeners, so we don't usually go over YouTube chat or YouTube donations. So if you do donate, know that you might not get an answer, at least in voice. We usually try to... on our various channels, try to respond in chat. We will be recording this over here on Eckhart's Ladder and over on Corey's channel, Corey's Datapad. We're also being joined by Charles, our friend and guest. But with
guest, let's not.
Yeah, you're right. With that being said, should we just go ahead and start recording?
Yeah, I pressed the record button already, so I'm just going to edit that part out. I'm glad that you got the first intro out of the way there.
Mm-hmm.
But is everyone ready for the second intro?
Yes.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Tapcaf Transmissions. It's actually, and I hate to admit this finally, or to find out that we've been wrong all these years. We are not the only Star Wars podcast. It's come to my attention that there is at least two other ones.
Oh yeah, Gus and Imogen,
so,
you mean?
Yeah, each of those is a Star Wars podcast. You don't have kids, you have podcasts.
Yeah, little potties, that's what we call them. Little potty. Yeah.
Well, anyways, I am Corey, and joining me is my usual co-host, Mr. Eckhart's Ladder. How you doing, Justin?
Can't complain. And
joining us once again for, I think, the third episode in row is Charlie. So welcome back, Charlie.
Thank you for having me. I understand that dislikes isn't really helping the channel with me being on it, but no. Appreciate the third one.
Yeah, we actually got kicked off Spotify because we were being accused of hosting an incel podcast.
Yeah, this is the last time he's actually going to be on, so don't worry about that.
Yeah, you make one statement about Tinder, and then everyone calls you an incel.
But yeah, so we are here to talk about two things mainly tonight. We have, of course, the usual Mandalorian recap and breakdown, but last night there was a lot of Star Wars news that we're gonna give. Exarchine is joining us. But yeah, so we are talking about the second to last episode of season 2 of The Mandalorian, as well as all the shows and the new movie that was announced last night in the Disney investor presentation, which I think that's a magical phrase for a way to.
I remember when I was a kid, and the first time my dad told me about the Disney shareholder teleconference, and well, it wasn't a teleconference this time, but just the Disney shareholder conference, the investor conference. It used to light my little heart up with joy, and I'm glad that the magic still is alive as an adult now.
Yeah, just like pick a different term if you're gonna have it exposed to the public. Pick a different term,
right? Like, but it was basically a news dump. Like, just call it news dump. Call it Star Wars news dump.
Yeah, just say Disney takes a big dump.
Yeah.
So, Charlie, did you watch all of the announcements, or are you just aware of them from? I know you're aware of them all from like other postings, but did you watch the actual presentation?
No, I didn't. No.
Okay. So I don't know why he's on this podcast, Justin.
Shit. Did you watch the presentation, Corey?
Yeah.
You just told me earlier you didn't.
I didn't earlier, but then I watched it because I knew I'd be doing a podcast about it.
Wow.
It's this thing about time, is that you can spend it doing things. But yeah, so I don't know if the version that I was able to find and watch was actually different from what was shown, because there were a few points where they were talking about like showing part of it, but I imagine that was just for the in-person or investor people. Yeah. And then they had pointless trivia over like the Obi-Wan sneak peek. Yeah, and whatever else they were doing for that.
No, that's what most of us got online as well.
Yeah, so we did get a Bad Batch trailer. We got was that the only? We got some footage of Cassian or Andor rather. But I guess we should start by just kind of going over I believe 9 shows that were announced, plus Mandalorian season 3, and then 1 new movie, unless you want to count the talking about Taika's movie, which we at least got confirmation was still going, because there's been a lot of Star Wars projects that have been ambiguously in progress for a while.
Yeah, and I'm kind of wondering what's happening with the Rian Johnson trilogy now, whether that's still happening or not. That's a big question I have after the because there's been so much, like, I don't want to say anxiety, but so much, I will use that word, over whether it's happening or not. So I'm kind of surprised that, I don't know, I guess I'm surprised it's so ambiguous.
Yeah, so there was another series that was spoken about before. Was that actually Acolyte that had this with Leslie Headland attached? And there was another show that was out before.
Yeah, so the Leslie Headland one was known, and Cassian's been known for a while.
Yeah, and Kenobi's obviously been known.
Yeah, was it maybe the Rogue Squadron movie that we knew about, and the Taika movie?
We knew about Taika's movie. I don't think the Rogue Squadron movie has been known, except for, like, maybe just in general that there was another movie that was coming out. But this is, maybe we should start with the Rogue Squadron movie, because there is just one movie that was announced. But
quite a movie.
Well, we got, for those who weren't aware, Taika Waititi is also doing a movie. This has been announced for quite some time, but he's behind, like, Thor Ragnarok.
He's done Mando stuff as well.
He's done a few of the Mando episodes. He was the voice of IG-11. Basically, I've been a fan of everything he's done.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited for that one. But we also got a Rogue Squadron film that's being helmed by Patty Jenkins, who did the Wonder Woman movie. And the thing we know about this is that it's set, I believe, it's going to be, Kathleen Kennedy said, ushering in a new period of Star Wars.
Yeah.
So the implication there being potentially that it's taking place after Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, that's the bit of controversy there, and that's the conversation I've been having with people on Twitter, because it is a T-65 X-Wing. First of all, I just want to say, people were right, but for the wrong reasons. A T-75 or a T-75, the engines look pretty similar from the back. The real difference is where the lasers are connected to the wingtips. But anyway, the fact that she used a T-65 in her little video she made, and that there's a T-65 in the logo, I don't think is determinative of anything. For one, they could be using new X-Wings.
Sorry. I just love the idea, the little video that she made. Like, it's Kathleen Kennedy in the editor's booth. Like, they're gonna love my presentation.
It's just like, that's the wrong X-Wing. Jesus Christ. But yeah, as I was saying, I don't think the fact that the X-Wing has appeared is really determinative of anything. I just think it's kind of the most iconic shape they had. It actually looks a lot like the X-Wing from, I forget, one of the Star Wars Legends reference books is what I'm kind of wondering if that's where they got the PNG from. But yeah.
But yeah, I guess on top of those, we'll talk a bit about more depth for any of them. That there wasn't a lot of information for all of them, but at least we have a rough outline for most things. But for the show end, there was Rangers of the New Republic and Ahsoka, both being helmed by Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau, that are kind of spin-offs of The Mandalorian. Obviously, there's going to be Mandalorian spoilers in this podcast. There's going to be a recap of the most recent episode.
Yes.
If you are worried about that, leave now. Don't even watch Beerio Cart later, because Charlie will have you covered there as well.
Oh my god.
Sorry, Charlie.
Yeah, and
we shouldn't be mean to Charlie on this podcast, because people don't know that we know him and that this is just what we all do to each other.
Yeah.
Mostly what we do to Charlie.
Yeah. So Charlie did spoil it, but that's okay. It happened.
But yeah, so Rangers of the New Republic and Ahsoka are kind of spin-offs of The Mandalorian. I'm not sure if Rangers of the New Republic, is that supposed to be like the follow-up to what Cara would have been doing as a rebel?
I'm wondering,
not necessarily including Cara Dune, or is it going to be like the X-Wing pilot? Not the two we saw, because I think Dave Filoni's going to be starring in a series.
I mean, I don't think Dave Filoni will be, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Kim's Convenience actor showed up, because he's really good. But yeah, they talked about how these 3 series are going to like come together for some big event. And I'm hoping after that happens that The Mandalorian continues, because my fear is that the big event is what The Mandalorian's leading to, and then it's just it. But I think if they're smart, that'll just be kind of the first, plot arc of the show, and then they can move on.
Yeah, I think there's still a lot, because if it's leading up to some sort of crossover with Ahsoka and Rangers of the New Republic, then I don't know if we'd have in 8 episodes enough to handle all of the like Mandalore related plot lines that seem to be coming up, that are more likely to get handled in The Mandalorian. So I could see it being a thing where Mandalorian does continue for a season 4. It wouldn't be strange for a show made for a streaming platform to have 3 seasons and be canceled, or just not canceled, to end at that point, because that's how Netflix typically does it. And I'd assume they have data on that shows audience retention after 3 seasons, and a lot of these shows tend to be being put forward as like a 12 episode or 10 episode special series for Disney Plus.
Right. No, that's a good point. And I hope it goes on for longer, because I'm really enjoying it. But if they can find a good way to end it, I'm sure we'll get more of the characters somewhere. I'm kind of curious though, where the Rebels, because we've been hearing for a long time that there's going to be an animated Rebels sequel, not just a Rebels sequel, an animated Rebels sequel. Even if that wasn't the thing, I don't see how a show called Ahsoka fills that gap, because Ahsoka's in Rebels, but she's not really the focus of Rebels, and I don't think you wrap up a show that has all of those characters in one titled Ahsoka, if that makes sense. Like, it's just it seems weird to me that Ahsoka would be that sort of continuation of the story. Obviously, it's going to be part of what's going on, but I don't know. I did expect there to be, Rebels 2, Resistance Boogaloo, or whatever it's called.
I think it'd be unfair to the series to have it be such a strong tie-in with Rebels when it could do so well as a standalone.
Yeah.
Well, sorry, Charlie, I forget from last time. I think I asked you then, but you haven't seen all of Rebels, right?
I haven't seen all of Rebels nor all of Clone Wars, no. But I have a relatively basic understanding.
So yeah, name every Rebel.
I can't do that, but I can name every droid.
Okay.
No.
Do you have any thoughts then on whether this would be, because this is obviously just the 2020 investor presentation. We have a whole 2021 investor presentation to look forward to, and this seems to just be the stuff that is both on the TV side, at least, in production now, and likely to show up in the next year to some extent.
Sorry, Charlie, go ahead.
I was going to say, just to clarify for that question, for the Ahsoka TV show, what characters I expect to be in there. Well, I'm assuming that there would be like a connection with some of the Rebel characters we've seen in with like Bo-Katan.
Yeah.
In what was the episode called? I forget the name.
The
Heiress.
Yeah, we got that. I think I wouldn't be surprised if there might be some form of a crossover with the Mandalorian, actually, just to create that MCU style universe that they're clearly gunning for.
They did basically announce when it came in that it would be in the time period of the Mandalorian and kind of crossover with it. So, like, we can assume that the show is going to be about like Ahsoka's search for Thrawn, which does seem to cover kind of what you would expect from a Rebels sequel series. So,
which is nice, because
you think maybe it started off as being a Rebels 2 animated that turned into this, or
I don't know. I mean,
because a live action series is a bit more of an undertaking.
Yeah, no,
for
definitely.
that. And maybe they just saw there was enough interest in Mandalorian did well enough that plan shifted into Ahsoka.
I mean, I tend to think no, because I mean, a live action undertaking is a lot of work, but I mean, so is an animated one. And I find it hard to believe that they would just radically change plans based on shooting one season of the Mando, unless they knew, like, unless the Rebels animated sequel was never a thing. But I mean, when I look at these, not all of them are coming out. Like Rogue Squadron comes out 2023. I don't think we have a date for like the Acolyte or Ahsoka or Rangers. I think Obi-Wan.
Well, this is stuff that's all in active production or stated to come out in the next year.
Yeah.
Movies typically have a longer lead up, anyways.
Mhm.
So when it comes to something like the a Rebel sequel series, maybe the idea was around and that's the form it was going to take before the Mandalorian took off the way it did. But that could have turned into live. Like, I'm sure there'll be some people who are thinking like, oh, because people responded positively to Ahsoka and the Mandalorian, that's what happened.
Yeah.
But no, that is definitely not the case. That was 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
But
I mean, like Obi-Wan hasn't even started filming yet. Like a lot of this is weird because of COVID as well. I believe it was supposed to have started filming pretty recently, but now they've moved it to January. But yeah, I mean, all in all, each of these shows seems interesting. I think Rangers of the New Republic, for me personally, Ahsoka's good. I think Ahsoka's pretty much guaranteed to be great. And I had felt when I watched The Mandalorian, I kind of feel like Rosario Dawson that was not her first time in the character, because she had lots of little nuance that I thought was really good for her first kind of experience. Like even when fighting, or like there was some little facial movement she made that made me feel like, okay, she's definitely been doing this for more than just this one episode, whether they filmed or not. Which I think was also kind of obvious.
I'm worried though, because with what Corey mentions about how this show might be her searching for Thrawn, I was totally expecting this to be in The Mandalorian. Like I was expecting her to find Thrawn in The Mandalorian season 3. So now this puts it back up in the air of like, are we even ever going to see? Is that just a minor preview of what's going to be in the Ahsoka series, or is it actually going to be in season 3 of The Mandalorian?
I feel like there's so much other stuff that's going to be going on with The Mandalorian that, like, I was never thinking that was going to be part of The Mandalorian. I was kind of hoping that wouldn't be part of The Mandalorian, because I feel like that would detract from, like, maybe Gideon's story is connected to Thrawn's, and it seems like that's kind of likely the direction it's going. But I feel like trying to put Ahsoka's hunt for Thrawn within The Mandalorian either shoehorns too much of that plot into what The Mandalorian is doing, or doesn't give that plot, which could be very interesting on its own right, enough space to breathe, because it would have to be like 2 little part episodes in The Mandalorian. And I think that wouldn't do Thrawn justice in the way that I think a lot of people would want. And I think having something that is focusing on him as kind of the primary antagonist works a bit better.
Yeah, you're right there.
Yeah,
I agree.
I'm actually a little relieved that this has happened, because, for one, it doesn't mean that Thrawn will never be in The Mandalorian. But like, I wouldn't be surprised if he appears maybe just as, for a second or whatever else, or just as a kind of a greater force. But it does mean Thrawn doesn't need to be handled in The Mandalorian, which I think is good, because it's not really the appropriate show for him. So I think it's good that they've kind of set all of these shows up to kind of, because that way you got the Mandalorian story, which is kind of hinting at all these interesting things. But now, and this is kind of what we talked about before the season, what we predicted as well, that it would probably introduce some things and not fully kind of deliver on them in a way, or it would be time for other shows. I didn't expect it to be so many live action shows, which is kind of exciting. But yeah.
Well, just to kind of finish the topic of like a potential Rebel sequel, what characters do we kind of have, assuming it would have been a standalone thing that are unaddressed? Like Ahsoka and Thrawn, you could classify as Rebels characters that are going to be handled within this. Then you have Ezra, whose fate is unknown. Sabine, who could easily fit very well into The Mandalorian.
We got like Callus and Zeb as well. Like, we don't really know. We know they kind of go off, and like I feel like they're probably lovers, but I guess the big,
and then Ezra's fate, which is
Ezra
probably tied to whatever happens with Thrawn.
I mean, honestly, Ahsoka is the big one, because she's the kind of most popular character of that era, and we don't know whether she's alive or dead by the time of episode 9. So she's the big one, but I mean, we don't know what happened. We know kind of a bit more about Hera. We don't know very much about Sabine. We know nothing about Ezra and Thrawn.
Well, that's what I'm thinking with Rangers of the New Republic. Could that end up being where Hera's story goes as the other kind of primary character? And then within the Rebels group, you kind of have some tie-ins to The Mandalorian, but you have half of them kind of showing up primarily in Ahsoka and the other half primarily going from Rangers of the New Republic.
Yeah.
Because it's both are Favreau and Filoni. And Filoni tends to have like his dedicated arcs that he's focusing on. So having those three shows that are kind of tied together in that way, I think it would make sense that this is where we're going to get a lot of the next stage in the stories for those Rebels characters. Because like you can't really have Rebels 2 in the New Republic. It'd have to be something different. They're not a Rebel cell anymore. Hera's been in command of the New Republic forces for a while, or not all of them, but in a significant amount of them, or she's been high up within the New Republic for a while. Ezra's in a space whale. Sabine is doing Mandalorian things. Ahsoka's off, like with her fate unknown, kind of until this point. And I think it'd be very difficult to have a Rebels 2 and have them all be together and not feel like it's contrived just for the show to exist. Whereas what we have here are some potential for interconnected shows, still keeping them all within the areas that it would kind of make sense for their stories to progress to, but
no, that's a good point.
At least being shown.
I mean, I've just heard, and I've heard pretty reliably that there is a Katie Sackhoff / Cara Dune show. So I assume that's what this is, right? Like it's gotta be. But I don't know. Like, yeah.
I do think Corey's going to win this bet now because I think Ezra is a much higher chance to be the Jedi that will come to the calling of Grogu, and that could tie in quite nicely with Ahsoka.
I'd say it doesn't hurt his chances for sure.
Yeah, and was it what $10,000 that we decided each for that bet?
I can just about muster that, I think. Yeah.
But I guess we should probably move on. Try to at least get through the rest of them, and then maybe at that point say what we're looking forward to most. Maybe. So the next show that got announced is Andor, which is the Cassian show that we've all known is kind of coming for I think a year or two now, at least that it's public knowledge. We did get a little bit of a preview for that. There was some Rogue One stuff, but there was some also concept art, and we saw them kind of doing some of the pre-production work.
Looks good. I mean, yeah.
There was a Venator workshop that we kind of saw there.
It looked like there's been a couple of both Andor and Bad Batch looked like you were visiting the planet from Fallen Order.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
And even we'll get into today's Mando episode and where Bill Burr was being picked up from.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we got basically it's being directed by Tony Gilroy or written by Tony Gilroy. And the only other note I had for it was spy thriller, Venator workshop. But yeah, so Rogue One, I have factually and correctly stated that Rogue One is at least a top 2 Star Wars movie. So I'm really excited for that. But yeah,
yeah. I mean, I'm interested. It's probably one of the ones that I'm least excited about. But I would have said the same thing about The Mandalorian. Like I don't know. There's a story to be told there, and one thing I'm kind of learning is that a lot of these shows, and I think the show for me that had the biggest 180 in terms of not being excited to being excited is Bad Batch, and I think like the Cassian show could be like that. I guess I was focusing too much on it telling Cassian's story when really it's just the fact that Cassian's there for like all this shit that's going on. So yeah, I think it could be good.
So I guess we'll skip Kenobi, go to Bad Batch now. Charlie, did you see the trailer for that?
For the Bad Batch?
Yeah.
Yes, I did. Just once though, so it's going to be quite vague in my mind.
Well, just as someone who wasn't that engaged with Clone Wars, did you watch season 7 though?
No, I'm limited in the sense that I literally just watched so many certain scenes from the show. I never wanted to invest my time into a show with 7 seasons and then start on season 7.
that's perfect what I'm going to ask then. Like, what were your impressions having just seen the trailer? Not like specifically your thoughts on individual scenes, but like, did you have a sense from having seen that like that was a thing that you would want to watch or not? As someone who hasn't really been engaged with the Clone Wars.
If I'm going to be brutally honest, and I think some people might hate me for it, no.
Okay.
Not really, but I can understand why some people will enjoy it anyway.
Right. So
yeah,
you're on the opposite side of that though, Justin, where you weren't excited, but this trailer has made you excited for that.
In everything but name, and only, I mean, we get the allusion to this in the title. This is Clone Wars Season 8. Like, I mean, it fades away from the Clone Wars logo into Bad Batch. I thought it was going to be further in the future. It seemed like the Bad Batch was going to, like, the initial, I don't know if this was a leak or a very, I think this was a very brief excerpt we got on Disney.com, or sorry, StarWars.com, basically saying that it was going to be them as, like, mercenaries or something, or in the, it just didn't really interest me, but this is basically, yeah, it's Clone Wars Season 8. So yeah, I'm a lot more excited after. I thought it was a good trailer for Clone Wars fans.
Yeah, I'm kind of more on Charlie's side here, where I didn't think I'd be excited beforehand, and this trailer will, like, I don't think it looks like a bad show. I think it's going to do what it's setting out to do very well, but I wasn't thinking it would be my kind of show, and the trailer kind of just confirmed to me that it's probably not going to be my type of show. Like, I wasn't a big fan of the Bad Batch arc in season 7. That was probably my least favorite of them, and like, I don't really like the characters. I've never been an A-Team fan, and it really is just like animated A-Team in Star Wars. So like, I'm definitely gonna watch it. I'm not gonna hate it or anything, but it's, if I were to pick like all the ones that got announced, probably it and A Droid Story are my least looking for, or least anticipated of them.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. I get where you're coming from. For me, like, you could call, it's like, I was thinking you could call the Clone Wars, you know, the 501st as a TV show,
right?
And I'm kind of imagining that's what the Bad Batch might be like. Obviously, the scale will be different because it's not the Clone Wars anymore. It's a much more like subdued time. There's not this, you know, galaxy spanning conflict or whatever else. But I don't know, like, we saw what apparently is Commander Cody in the trailer. But you're right. I think the squad itself is not the most interesting kind of group we've ever had in Star Wars, which is why I was sort of leaning the same way as you before the trailer came out. But yeah, I just got, this just felt like Clone Wars Season 8. But if you're less interested in the characters, and there are no Jedi at this point, you know, I can see why you might not be.
Yeah, like, I'm definitely interested in seeing some of the stuff, like, oh, what happens to Cody in the early days of the Empire, or some of these other characters. But when the core of the show and kind of the intended genre of the show is so far outside of what I would normally look for, it's not something that I'm as excited for. But I think that does get to the point that, like, one of the cool things about this is where, on the one hand, I could see a very reasonable point being like, there are 9 or 10 Star Wars shows that are going to be going on. That is a lot. And is that oversaturation? But I think if you look at all of them, they're all kind of doing something different.
Yeah.
Or maybe the Mandalorian, Ahsoka, and Rangers of the New Republic probably aren't going to be super different from each other. But it's kind of just like these different genre takes using the Star Wars universe to tell a different story. And I think that's one of the things that Star Wars can do really well, is, and it might even expose people to new genres that they might not usually give a chance to.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, there's a different audience for the Bad Batch. Like, the Bad Batch audience will be more kind of concentrated on hardcore Star Wars fans, just like the Clone Wars was, than something like Mando, or presumably something like Ahsoka. So I think there's room for both. And I mean, we do even see some tie over between Mandalorian and Bad Batch, because we got a shot of who's almost certainly Fennec Shand in the Bad Batch teaser.
Yeah.
And we got what looked like even earlier generation Dark Troopers, maybe. So
I do want to clarify though, despite me saying that I it didn't initially catch on with me, I do think it's going to do its job very well, and it kind of like brings it back to the point I made in the previous episode where it's the Clone Wars or the prequel trilogy is associated a lot more to a generation younger than us, that they grew up with that original, with those three films, and in the Clone Wars TV show. So the Bad Batch is definitely going to resonate more with them, while for us it's like the original trilogy is probably going to resonate with us more than the prequels. So I think, yeah, you're right, it is going to hit a certain niche that isn't necessarily us, I guess.
I mean, it is for me because I'm a Clone Wars fan, but
I think we are that generation, really.
Yeah.
But maybe for the generation like right below us, where they're the age that they were the age when the Clone Wars 2008 came out, that we were when the prequels came out. Because there's about a 10-year difference there.
Yeah.
8 to 10 years, which probably not a full generation, but maybe a bit younger. But I think the big thing is just the genre rather than for me at least, is the genre rather than the
part of it is also
prequel versus OT.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't a fan of the Clone Wars really until I started my YouTube channel, because I just kind of wrote it off as like a kid's show, which I think a lot of people did. And then I got to watching it. I'd watched like a few seasons before and I was kind of into it, and then I started watching it more and I was like, okay. But I mean, we also have to consider too that a lot of these shows are going to be limited or smaller runs. Like Kenobi's probably going to be like 6 episodes. Lando, I've heard, is a limited run. So I can see the Bad Batch being one of those shows that's not a limited run, where it's something like, a Rebels or a Clone Wars, where it goes on from like 4 to 6 episodes or 4 to 6 seasons. So I do think it is good for them to have kind of a mix. It could also be one of those shows where instead of putting out 6 or 8 episodes a season, they're putting out like 20 or 18 or whatever.
Well, it is worth noting, I think, that like of these 10 shows that they're going to have active, 4 of them are set essentially in the time between episode 3 and episode 4, in a very similar period, where I think that's the case, or at least 3, where it's Kenobi, Bad Batch, and in Andor.
Lando should be
with Andor being a bit later, but Lando is the 4th one that I was less sure of exactly what's going on with that, but I think it is. Like I saw your tweet, which I thought was a really cool idea of. Well, I assume you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I mean, my idea for the show, and this, I don't think this is my original idea. This is like been suggested by many people, but
okay.
Lando.
I only follow you on Twitter, so
I mean, I was the only one who like, I didn't steal this from someone, but I'm sure that I got this idea through osmosis or something. But the interesting idea to me is have Billy D. Williams basically telling stories from his youth, which are then acted out by young Lando, and I don't know, I think that would be really fun. And the good thing about that is it'd be kind of like the old Lando Calrissian trilogy, where the stories themselves can be a little more over the top. They don't need to be strictly canon, which, if Lando's telling a story, then there's kind of the assumption that, okay, there's some exaggeration there as well.
Let me tell you about the mind harp of
yeah, exactly. Flame winds of Ocean, whatever else. But I think Lando maybe, so they call the Lando Calrissian show an event series, which indicates that it's probably only going to be a few episodes.
Yeah.
So it could be four adventures or something.
Yeah. So, sorry, Charlie?
No. Carry on.
I was just going to move on to Kenobi there. So if you have anything you wanted to add in with the Lando discussion, if there's anything you're looking forward to there. Have you seen Solo? Have you seen...
I haven't seen Solo. That's the only one I've not seen of all of the more recent post-Disney films.
I've just got the StarWars.com page has been updated a little bit. One interesting about, like I mentioned just a second ago, a lot of these shows are called limited or whatever else. So some of them, the Bad Batch is specifically called an animated series, which to me indicates length. The Acolyte is a series, or no, the Acolyte isn't mentioned. We'll talk about that in a bit. Andor is a show, I think. Lando is a event series, so again indicating that it's short. Rangers of the Republic is a live action series, indicating that it's probably going to be, a couple of seasons. But Ahsoka is a limited series, so probably just one season of like 5 or 6 episodes. So to me, that's indicating that that's not the Rebels sequel.
Right.
Maybe the Rebels sequel comes after that, but
yeah. I think a droid story was also a limited series. I feel like you're really leaving out a droid story mentions on your recaps here, Justin, and I don't know. I don't know if I can take that anymore.
yeah, I mean, I think that I'm really actually going to like that one because I like Star Wars droids. And yeah, I'm all for like different animation. So
is it droid story animated? I thought it was live action.
it's like
It's live.
no, it's like I'm pretty sure it's gonna be like stop motion or something because it's like talks about an intersection of animation and the intersection of animation and visual effects, whatever that.
So the other series that we haven't talked about yet are Kenobi, Visions, and Acolyte. Let's talk about Kenobi first, which I think they said was 10 years after Revenge of the Sith. So it puts it basically directly between
I didn't catch that.
Between episode 4 and episode 3. I might have misheard it, but I think that's what she said. They confirmed Hayden Christensen is going to be in as Darth Vader, which I think has been suspected and like roughly confirmed for a while, but this is like the first time I think we've gotten an official confirmation of it. It's starting to finally go into actual production in March. This has been delayed multiple times, COVID being the prime factor there, I think. And it is being directed by Deborah Chow, who I believe did a few of the Mandalorian episodes.
2 of the best episodes.
I forget which ones.
Episode 3 and episode 7. Episode 3 is like the one where he's fighting back to get Baby Yoda, and then episode 7, where we get introduced to Moff Gideon in the flesh. So 2 really good ones. And yeah, this is also another one of those special event series, so probably not going to be as long as even something like Ahsoka. This is something that could very easily be like 3 episodes or 4 episodes, or up to 6. But I am hoping that because Hayden is coming back, I hope they don't just stuff him in a suit the whole time. I think it'll be a big waste if we don't get some sort of flashback scenes. I think we need to have flashback scenes throughout there. I mean, Hayden and Ewan McGregor both still look, they
aged very well.
Yeah. I was gonna say that.
You don't even need makeup for them. You don't even need CG, just a little bit of makeup, if that, and you're good.
Yeah, like Ewan's what, 50 now?
Is he really that old?
Yeah, he's 50. You could tell me he's 35, and I'd be like, yeah, he's 35. And Hayden isn't that much younger.
Yeah, he's 49.
But he's they both look very similar to what they did in episode 3.
Is he 49?
Ewan McGregor is, yeah.
Oh yeah, no. Kristen is
he's 39.
40.
Yeah.
39, yeah, sorry.
Yeah. You mean Hayden Christensen? Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
Don't
get flamed.
Kennedy said something about like about a rematch, and I feel like that was just having them both on the same show. I don't think we're expecting a lightsaber duel between Obi-Wan and Luke, or not Obi-Wan and Luke, between Obi-Wan and Darth Vader. But the other thing I'm kind of wondering is, do we see a young Luke in this?
Yeah,
because Obi-Wan is hanging out on Tatooine.
8-year-old Luke. Yeah.
And is this how we introduce well, how old? Yeah, I guess he would be about 10 or 11.
Yeah, 10, because you said
I think 10 years isn't Luke like 22 and
he's 18 in episode
1981.
Yeah. So he's 18 in episode 4. So 8 years before that he'd be 10 or so. I think they definitely have young Luke in that. Probably just from the distance though, kind of like we got in some of those old Star Wars EU comics. Yeah.
Yeah. So like we basically the plot is we see all these times that Obi-Wan comes over to the Lars household for dinner, gets kicked out. Maybe we'll find out some information on why Tatooine makes people age so horribly. Whether it's Boba, Obi-Wan, the Larses.
They could probably bring back I was just thinking about it. They could probably bring back the actors who played like everyone on Tatooine from the prequels, and it'd probably work now because the aging would be
not the original trilogy.
No, like the Aunt Beru from like 2005. What's her name? Let me see. Aunt Beru, actress. Yeah, like she's 37, so she looks. I'm looking at a picture of her. She actually kind of grew up. Her name is Bonnie Piesse, Piesse. She kind of grew up to look like Aunt Beru. Like, George, you kind of nailed it, buddy. I doubted you a bit, but good job.
But like, I've tweeted about this, but like Boba Fett, Tamura Morrison right now is playing Boba Fett at the same age, and Boba Fett being a clone of Jango, playing him at the exact same age that Jango was in Episode 2 when he was playing him 20 years ago.
That's so wild. I mean, Ian McDiarmid also was like, what, in his 30s?
But he was in like heavy makeup to look like a wrinkly old dude. Whereas like, we just have more and more confirmation that Tatooine ages you like shit.
Yeah, it is a bit rough.
And I'm not saying that Tamura Morrison aged poorly. I'm just saying that obviously he doesn't look the same at 60 as he did at 40.
No.
There's 20 years in there.
No, you're right.
I think for a 60-year-old, he still looks great.
For
a 40-year-old,
he'd kick all of our asses at the same time. Just to be clear, Tamura, if you're listening, we don't have any shade. I've been defending you for the fat Boba thing in person. Everyone I meet, they're like, "Oh, you see Boba Fett's looking a little chunky." I was like, "He's got a robe on."
He was putting armor over a robe. Yeah,
he's got a robe on. That's not what a dad bod is. Like, he's in good shape. Anyway.
Yeah. We should probably go a bit faster through the last ones. Where we have Star Wars Visions. There's not really much to talk about there. It's going to be 10 anime studios doing 10 episodes.
It's going to be sick.
Various vignettes. I'm really excited.
So excited for that one.
Authentic Japanese animation too, they said. So like, not my favorite anime, King of the Hill, but
it's like Rick and Morty actually did that. They tried to make something like that, and it was the best episode they've ever made, in my opinion.
I didn't understand it. My IQ was too low.
But yeah, that's gonna be cool. Maybe maybe we'll get like another classic Clone Wars episode. I know what's his name is not Japanese, but at least I don't think he is.
No. Then there's a droid story, which we've made a few references to, where it's a new hero doing a story with R2-D2 and C-3PO. And the final show is Acolyte, which is a mystery thriller by Leslie Headland. And this is going to be closing the High Republic era. So this is actually about 200 years before the rest of it. 300 years? I forget. But
I mean, the end of the High Republic era.
Yeah,
I'm guessing we see Plagueis in this one. That's my big theory. Apparently, I just wikied it. Apparently, the High Republic era ends around 100 BBY. So we could have a Darth Plagueis here.
Yeah.
Because Acolyte obviously screams Sith, right? So.
Yeah. But I guess with all that said, is there a show that you guys are looking forward to most and least of all these? And let's not include Rogue Squadron in that as a movie, because I feel like that would be skewing things. But
can I modify that question a little bit? Because this was a question that I was going to ask.
No.
It is... Okay.
No,
so my favorite and least...
Go for it.
What will be your most enjoyable for you in the list, the least enjoyable for you, and the dark horse that might be the most successful out of all of them?
Successful in that you'll enjoy it the most, or successful as in
successful be the most for everyone, not particularly just for you, because that will just be, that's my favorite. So yeah, for example, I think the most successful, the one that I will enjoy the most is probably Ahsoka. The one that I will least enjoy is probably going to be Droid Story or the Bad Batch.
Okay. Bitch.
And I think the dark horse is going to be Visions. I think that's also going to be something I super enjoy as well.
Yeah, that's gonna be sick. I think like that's just show. I always advocate for more like non-connected stories. Like one-off stories in Star Wars are awesome. More of those would be good. For me personally,
that's a question to chat too.
Oh yeah, question for chat as well and podcast listeners. For me personally, I think my least one that I'm looking for the least would probably be, I'm gonna exclude Droid Story because it's kind of different.
Yeah,
I don't know. Obi-Wan for me is, if they bring I think they're gonna bring Liam Neeson back. That'll probably. I think Andor for me. I don't know how much story there is to be told there, but I think it could still be great. Or Lando, but Lando's sort of a dark horse for me because the more I watch Solo, the more I enjoy it. So, and then the one I'm looking forward to the most, probably Mandalorian season 3, or Ahsoka.
What about you, Corey?
So for me, the one I'm looking forward to the least, I think, like I said, it's the Bad Batch. Again, it's not my genre. The rest of these, I could see myself getting more into. Where again, I don't think the Bad Batch will be bad, but it's not something that's exciting me going into it. The one that I'm looking forward to the most is actually Acolyte.
Yeah, that's a good call.
Where the just mystery thriller there. Mm-hmm. That's something that I feel like I would enjoy. And I also think it's something that Dana will enjoy. So when I mentioned Andor and Acolyte to her and kind of the genres of those, she was kind of on board with that. And so my girlfriend, I have made her watch every Star Wars movie, except for so far we haven't watched Rise of Skywalker. But she watches The Mandalorian. She's fine with it. I don't think it's her favorite thing in the world. I think she actually does enjoy it a lot more than some of the movies. But like I could see both of us really enjoying Acolyte. And I feel like as far as the dark horse goes, for a show that I'm not sure or for something that could end up being my favorite of the batch, for me, would be Rangers of the New Republic, depending on what direction that goes. But I think for picking a dark horse, as in like what people might really get behind, I'm going to go with Acolyte again.
Yeah, that's a really good call.
The thing that I think people have really, or has really resonated with people with new Star Wars has tended to be the stuff where there isn't a prior expectation of what, or like anything that's in any way tinged by nostalgia, where I think The Mandalorian is the key, or is the best example of that, where there was nothing to really expect going in other than an idea of what a Mandalorian was. And so there wasn't any other characters that the people felt were or could be perceived as mishandled. That I feel like no matter what happened with the sequel trilogy, there would have been some element of that response. And when stuff gets introduced on its own, it's tended to be pretty good. And I think there were elements of like Rogue One that have had that response. And I think Acolyte is kind of that in a series again, like what we got with Mandalorian originally. So I think that this is something that people won't necessarily be looking forward to, but once it comes out, if it's as good individually as The Mandalorian has been, I think the premise is something that is still connected but detached enough that it will be pretty widely liked.
Bang on. I think.
Yeah,
I
think you nailed it. For me, it's just you just don't know anything about it, but I think you're 100% right. For me,
well, that's part of what makes me think that, because like Kenobi, maybe it'll be really good, but it could also clash with what people's expectations are, whereas something that has no expectations, and that's something you could say with all of these, with Ahsoka, with Kenobi, with Bad Batch, with Lando, and Acolyte has none of that going in, so it's this fresh slate that Mandalorian was, using Star Wars as just kind of like a set piece and building around some other stuff,
No, yeah, you're right. It's a good point. I'm still gonna say though, none of them will come close to Rogue Squadron for me in terms of excitement.
That's why I left it out of the running.
All right, so let's move on and talk about Mando. Unless anybody's got any final thoughts.
None from me.
Okay, so
one quick question: Rogue Squadron or Taika's movie?
Rogue Squadron. I don't know. That's a hard question. I don't like Guardians of the Galaxy, and I was getting Guardians of the Galaxy vibes, but we'll see. Whatever the look of the giant, like whatever, whether it's the Mortis monolith or something else, and the logo kind of got me excited. But yeah.
Charlie, Starfighters or Thor 3?
I hated
Thor 3.
Well.
I don't watch any Marvel films apart from Avengers. Useless question for me. Hey,
Yeah.
No.
I really didn't like Thor 3 as well. So I don't know. I don't like the wackier Marvel movies except for Ant-Man. But anyway, let's talk about the newest episode of The Mandalorian. That was chapter 15. It was called The Believer, right?
Yes.
Episode 7 of season 2. So basically the general idea is the Mandalorian is tracing Moff Gideon, or trying to trace Moff Gideon's flagship, his weird Architens type thing, and he's looking for, what's his name in the show again?
Shit, how do I not remember it right now? Bill Burr.
Bill Burr, yeah. He's looking for Bill Burr, who was an ex-Imperial and who he believes can help them track down the location of, I don't know what they're doing, whether they're tracking down his home base or what it is, but yeah. So they go to a planet, they fight their way in, they get access to a computer, they fight their way out, and that's the kind of high level Mayfeld. That's kind of the high level summary of what happened.
Yeah, I do like the idea that they went to get Mayfeld because he was ex-Imperial, and then when they get to Morak, they're standing outside. He's talking about how they're going to get into the facility, and he's like, "No, you can't go because they'll scan your DNA. They'll know you." She's like, "Well, you sure know a lot about Imperial remnants, as if this is like not the reason they fucking picked him up in the first place." Like, Kara, fuck off.
That is true.
I also like that he is the only ex-Imperial they could think of.
Yeah, like you go
they've got to know
New
someone
Republic
else.
capital ship, there's got to be like 3 on there at least. I do like how when they're trying to figure out who's gonna go, Boba's like, "Yeah, I think they'll recognize my face."
Yeah, there were a few good
100 million of me
here
out in the galaxy. Yeah, for sure.
I really enjoy the writing in this episode, and I think that's been the case with his previous episodes as well.
I love him. I love Boba Fett. I think he's such a really cool character, and I'm gutted that he didn't get more screen time this episode.
I think they're actually doing a good job with him. I was a little worried, but they've been. But it's also for me been kind of nice to get back to a more standard Mandalorian episode. In hindsight, especially, I do like that the last 2 were different in tone and style. Especially Dave Filoni's was kind of like that samurai movie. It was shot pretty differently, and then the last one is even more so, I guess. So it's kind of nice to get back to. There were still lots of interesting character developments in this one, especially with the Mandalorian and with Mayfeld. But it was more, there weren't any kind of greater connections to the overall universe. Like, they weren't teasing Luke Skywalker or whatever, which I think was nice.
I disagree.
Really?
There weren't connections to the characters, but there was a lot here that was like tying in, or at least kind of explaining the connection between some of these groups and broader events. Like, we got Mayfeld talking to Hess about Burning Khan. We got like all the Operation Cinder talk. They talk about like. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say those aren't hinting at new plot threads or shows. Is what I
not new threads. Yeah, but
I just meant,
connections to the broader universe, but not.
Yeah, I should have stated that better. Like, we're not getting a new Ahsoka character or a new whoever character, a new Boba Fett introduced today. Like, That is what I meant to say. Like, there's no big surprises that people are going to be talking about for weeks.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, this episode was one that I wasn't really looking forward to after last week, because I didn't really think Mayfeld was so compelling a character. They needed to bring him back. But I really liked how he was handled here, where you do get the conversation between him and Dan on the way in, where he's saying like, "Oh, to all these people, Mandalorians would have the same beliefs as someone on Alderaan, except the fact that they're both dead," which, like, ouch. But obviously, the whole both sides are bad thing is bullshit. But it's also like, if you take that in context of what he does later, it's kind of like him trying to justify to himself what he did, or what he had done.
Yeah, for sure.
And kind of showing the effect that this stuff has on everyday people, which isn't really something that a lot of Star Wars ends up caring about. And I was thinking, when they were driving in on those juggernauts, the pirates that were attacking them, were those pirates, or were those just people from the planet who were...
Yeah, I'm not convinced they're pirates. And if you note, they're not trying to steal the...
Yeah.
Like, they're trying to blow it up. Like, I don't think they were pirates. I think they were trying to sabotage the Empire's operation. Like, if you're a pirate, you're presumably stealing something. They were destroying the entire convoy. So.
Yeah.
I want to go back to the point that Corey made and stuff. First off, I want to put it out there, and you guys might hate me for it. I thought this was one of the weakest episodes of the season.
That's fine.
I didn't enjoy it that much. Mayfeld was the best character of the show, of that episode, and I think they took a very boring character and made him a bit more three-dimensional. You said you dismissed the concept of him talking about how the New Republic and the Empire are the same. I think there's a lot of weight to what he said in that, and that's one topic that I took away quite from the episode. In the statement of, it doesn't matter if you're Empire or New Republic, these people see you as planet invaders that have their way of life, and it didn't need to be altered. And I thought that was it's a really good viewpoint of, like, you know, the whole muddying of who's good, who's bad sort of thing, which I really like.
Well, I wasn't dismissing it. Like, there's still a valid point there of, like, what happens to people, but I think you have to contrast that with what Valen Hess says later, and you do end up seeing that there is a difference, even if the end result is that people are still getting hurt.
Yeah.
And
it's only the Empire with stormtroopers. It's only the Empire who tortures people. The New Republic, they people get hurt through an action sometimes, but they're not objectively evil like the Empire is. Like,
I like the idea because it's on the essentially it tries to give different viewpoints, because I think having like a good guys and a bad guys thing can get very boring fast.
Well, you can have good guys and bad guys, and where the good guys sometimes do bad things, but you can still have an idea that, like, the core tenets of what makes up the Empire are still wrong, and the actions they're willing to take are still wrong. Is like, there's a difference between possibly the inaction of the New Republic and the fact that people did get hurt during the rebellion by rebel soldiers, and they did take actions that were like, if you look at Saga, like, this is something that's always existed in, especially the new canon with Saw Gerrera's group versus Mon Mothma's especially, or even the idea of, like, what we're probably going to see in Cassian's show, where Cassian Andor was part of a rebel cell that was involved in a lot of actions that would be very damaging and very bad for a lot of people. But then on the other side, you also have, with the Empire, the wanton destruction of even loyalist areas in order to weaken what the New Republic could be taking, or
not even that,
state-sponsored slavery, or for fun, Tarkin landing a Victory Star Destroyer on people.
Pretty epic, to be honest.
State-sponsored slavery of entire species, genocide of entire species.
I think you're missing the point that I'm trying to make. I'm not trying to make the Empire look good here. I'm just saying that that it's an interesting take from people who see both sides as bad, rather than trying to make the Empire. I'm not trying to say, oh, fascism is not a bad, guys. You know, it's got its positives. No, I'm not trying to make that point. I'm just trying to say that it was an interesting take, which I'm glad that Mayfeld, which was once a very boring character, made such a take that none of these other characters that we've been following would have had. You know.
And I think part of it too is the fact that he is kind of in denial, and it's something similar to what you get in Alphabet Squadron. I know, I'm sure you haven't read that, Charlie, but that's basically dealing with a former Imperial, at least former for a while, who's kind of wondering, why didn't I get out sooner? And like, why did I do all these things? Like, a lot of my friends are good people. We all kind of did these things that we shouldn't have done. So yeah, there's some interesting discussions to be had there. And that's kind of like that ties in closely to Operation Cinder too, which was mentioned in this episode, which was kind of cool. Operation Cinder, for those who don't know, is basically the Empire just said GG no re, and like blew up a bunch of their own planets and shit after they started losing, just kind of out of spite, really, to test who would do it.
Yeah. And it seems like that is kind of what put Mayfeld over the edge. Like, he was active in Operation Cinder, and when they're at the lunch table, he despite the fact that they're undercover in an Imperial base, he's faced with his former superior officer, and he can't help but bring up like, oh, so what we did on Burning Con was, and this is a relatively minor planet that I believe is like a small mining settlement.
Yeah, I'd never heard of it before, but I guess it existed.
Yeah, and you have Mayfeld's takeaway from it, which is that, oh shit, what we did was actually horrible and unnecessary. And then you have Hess, who kind of went the opposite way of what's her name in Alphabet Squadron?
Chaz? Wait, hold on. Chaz Nishadik? No. Oh, you mean
Chaff?
No, what's her name again?
Whatever.
Yeah.
No, not Chas.
No, I know.
The main character.
What's her name again?
God, how do I love the book, but I can't remember. Either way, you have Mayfeld kind of going the direction that she does.
Erica Quell. Why did I forget?
Quell.
Yeah, why did I forget?
Yeah, where like she's kind of taking the direction that Mayfeld does, and even she's like kind of thinking like, well, maybe I should have, maybe I shouldn't have, maybe I should have got out sooner. And the fact that I didn't get out sooner, now I feel like I'm stuck in this. And then her commander, you kind of get the same idea where he's still kind of in it, but he told her to get out. But here you have the absolute flip side of it with Valen Hess, who is basically like, yeah, this is how we make our victory. I gotta break some eggs to make an omelet. And I really don't think it was a coincidence that his name was what it was.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of sad too to think about the fact that he got left behind as well. He didn't get to go with the rest of the Empire when they were leaving to run away and start the first.
Yeah, he wasn't epic. He was willing to go through with this, but he wasn't epic enough to go into making the First Order.
I gotta say, I feel like Bill Burr is probably one of the better, maybe the best, kind of one-off side characters this episode. Like, I thought he nailed it. He showed off his acting chops, I thought, which I didn't know. But yeah, he showed some range. I thought he was kind of doing a good job of he's clearly got these issues under the surface that I wasn't expecting when the episode started. It's kind of one of the reasons why I feel like I'm starting to like it more now that we talk about it. Yeah.
And another thing that made me kind of like this episode more than the previous one is the kind of like the set design, the environments compared to what we got with Tython, especially when I had expectations going to Tython that I didn't hate it, but I wasn't really like, for so many of the episodes this season, this one including, there was an element of like, oh, look at how cool this location is. Whereas last time, which is like going to a place that is so established, it was just like, oh, this is a hill they're going to fight on for a bit. And I liked both of the locations we got here. And like the second one, Morak, was a bit more generic until you get to the refinery. But
the refinery was awesome.
The refinery was great. dam part of it was great when they're going along the side.
It reminded me of that level from Halo 3.
Yeah.
At the first level when you go rescue Sergeant Johnson from the brutes, reminded me of that. But yeah, that's I think that's kind of what I meant earlier when I was saying like tonally and like visually this was a lot more similar to a traditional Mandalorian episode versus especially the like kind of on the fly shooting of the last one. So that was nice.
I think the reason this was one of my most least enjoyed episodes was because I think I'm a little bit spoilt from season 2 just because of how good it's been for me, in the sense that I've mentioned in the previous 2 episodes, every couple of episodes it's been next bump to what's the next big thing here. So first it was Mando trying to find another Mandalorian and that intensity of finding one of his own, and then it was leading up to finding a Jedi, and then that being Ahsoka, which was really, really cool. And then finding and then hearing about Thrawn and the idea of what Thrawn could be, the Dark Troopers and the mysterious lab and what they're working on. All of these things were in separate episodes, not always in one. And that always kept me going to like the next big hit, you know, on what this series is going to bring. And this one didn't deliver it. I know there was a scene that you'll probably want to cover in a second about the helmet removal. It didn't hit. It was like, you know, like,
yeah,
it didn't really resonate with me much. But I think a lot more hardcore Star Wars fans are going to absolutely love this episode anyway.
Yeah, I definitely understand what you're saying. It's just, for me, I don't think you're wrong. I think we just kind of feel differently about it. I like the fact that the show kind of has its moments of like rising action or whatever else, and then it has these other moments where, because to me, like, if every episode had those big reveals, I feel like the reveals would be a little less noteworthy. And like this season's had so much in it, you know what I mean? Like it's had, and we still probably have another big reveal for the finale. Like, but I get what you're saying too, because at the end I was like, okay, what are we getting here at the end? There's going to be something that, you know, like the article headline for the next week, you know, the Luke Skywalker featured or whatever else. But looking back, I'm kind of happy we didn't get it, but I can understand why some people felt that was disappointing after how this season has sort of been so far.
Yeah, like, that's one of the reasons that I've liked this episode as much as I did, because I was kind of worried about how much would like Boba kind of take over it, and I feel like he played a good role, but he wasn't like stealing the spotlight, and the most that he kind of did was towards the end with Slave One killing the 2 TIE fighters, which I was like kind of giggling at, because I was, as soon as he's like,
yeah, me
as
too.
soon as the TIE fighters are coming up, I was like, is he gonna do it?
I was like,
is he gonna do it? Is he gonna do it? Oh, he did it.
Yeah, that was probably my favorite moment, and you can call that fan service if you want, but like
that is setting up a thing we know it can do, and then executing it properly.
Exactly. Like that was probably my favorite moment of fan service that we've gotten. One of my favorite moments of fan service this season, just because like that scene is like just pure like Star Wars, because it's stupid. Like, why does the sound all stop? I don't know, especially when they're in space. Like, it's just so cool that like you can't help but smile. And like I still remember seeing that scene in the theaters for the first time. So
yeah,
this is the scene where he destroys the 2 TIE fighters. Sorry, right?
Yeah.
I did go, holy shit, when I saw that.
So do you know, like,
no.
Basically the exact same thing happens in episode 2, where one of the first times we see Slave One, it's in Geonosis with Obi-Wan, and then he used the seismic charge, and then it was also a big thing in like Rogue Squadron where you could fly as Slave One and you could drop those charges. I think the A-Wings could do it in that as well, but
and in your mod as well.
And, well, in Empire War base game, yeah, it's a base game thing as well.
Oh, was it really?
Okay.
Yeah. So it's like it's a very established thing, and it was like as soon as Slave One is flying away from something, it's like, do it.
The second they go behind the ship, it's like, and that's, if I were to put money on one thing happening this episode, and I talked about this in a video I did during the week, because having Slave One is a really big change for the Mandalorian, because that ship is actually that ship can fuck. Like like the Razor Crest, and I understand you want to talk about this too, Corey. Take me to task on it. The Razor Crest, it couldn't fuck. It was impotent. It had 2 guns. They only pointed forward. Not great. Slave One can bang. on those TIE fighters. Like, and it's got a lot more than just that.
I can confirm this because I was talking to Justin about an episode on X2 where I'd be like, let's do an episode about what if the Razor Crest was in Squadrons, and he was like, absolutely not. Like, that would be very boring.
Every ship is better than it in the game.
See, I'm fine with saying Slave 1 is better than Razor Crest. Okay. There are two things that I think are unforgivable that you've said.
Okay.
One is that it's ugly, and I don't think it's ugly. I think it looks like a slightly shittier version of Serenity. Slightly.
Serenity's ugly too.
None of this. Get out of here with this shit. But
do you? Okay. Okay. Go ahead. No, I'm not.
The most before you yell at me.
Okay.
You need to know the other element that you're wrong on.
Okay.
Which is like the most unforgivable thing is that you said even Slave fucking 2 looks better than it.
Okay. The Razor Crest looks ridiculous. Like those two Mickey Mouse ears on the thing. Like it's just not a sexy ship. It looks okay when it's landed. It looks okay when it's landed.
But you don't have to want to bang a ship for it to be a good-looking ship.
I'm talking about sexy from a starship perspective, not what I want to bang, Corey. Like, there are versions of the Razor Crest, like, art, where it's a bit more angular on the front, where it looks cool. But, like, it's just so round, and it just looks like a fucking tugboat, like...
But compared to Slave 2?
Okay, listen... I understand. I'm not going to argue for Slave 2 because a lot of people don't like that ship. I totally get it. But I always like asymmetrical ships in Star Wars. I think that ship doesn't always look cool if you just Google it. But if you, I'm not talking about you because we've read Dark Empire. I think in Dark Empire that ship looks pretty cool. I think they could make changes to it as well. But yeah, my thoughts.
It's like a close in of a doorstop.
Yeah,
that's what Slave 2 looks like.
I mean, Corey, you're being reductive. I could call like the the Razor Crest looks like a hot dog with Mickey Mouse ears. Like,
yeah, that's at least interesting. Oh Slave 2 looks like, I'm not being reductive. There are 3 parts to that ship. There's a little flat thing on the bottom. There's the standy uppy bit, and there's the little connecting thing.
Okay,
and that's it. And it's ugly, it's boring. Yes, it's asymmetrical, but it's stupid and asymmetrical.
Okay, my main problem with the Razor Crest is that it's not far from being a really cool ship. But it's not there for me. Like, its fuselage, I guess, or its body is just so boring. It's just like I get that it's what's the ship it's supposed to look like again? The real life aircraft. What's it called again? Razor Crest real world.
The bird one?
Yeah, what's it called again? Well, like my main
albatross.
My main problem is that it needs to be wider, I think, given how like it needs wings or something. I just feel like because the way it is right now, I just don't like it. It's like, is it the Warthog it was meant to look like? Warthog fighter. Let me see. Sort of. But like, and the Warthog looks cool because it's got those big long wings and it's got the kind of the rear section that's wide. It's just, even the lat, like people are like, how do you like people are like, you like the lat but you don't like the Razor Crest. Well, the lat has those wings that kind of pulls it all together. If the lat was just the lat without those wings and the big engines on the top, it would look hella stupid.
Do you just not like engines, like giant engine pods? Is that...
No, because I like the X-Wing.
But that has wings that are extending past the engine pods. I'm trying to think of another ship that has like the large engine pods without the wings going beyond that, or where the engine pods are most of the wings. Do you like Jaster's Legacy?
No, I don't like Jaster's Legacy at all. I think that ship also looks really goofy.
I think that is what Razor's Crest would look like if it looked dumb. I think Razor's Crest is not my favorite ship, but I think is moderately cool. Mm-hmm. And I think the idea that Slave 2 in particular looks better than it, or would be better than it, is... I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not gonna disagree with you because it's. I'm gonna disagree with you, and I'm not gonna say you're wrong. But I think that a ship like Slave 2 would look really cool in live action if it was made very angular and very like metallic. I think you could make a real deadly looking ship. And I think part of the Razor Crest, or sorry, part of Slave 2's problems is it's never really had the proper representation it deserves.
So we are starting the hashtag Justice for Slave 2.
Like the Y-Wing. The Y-Wing is a good example. The Y-Wing is all engine pod, but the way that ship is kind of designed, it makes sense because there's like a better proportion. The size proportions between the engine pod and the fuselage work a lot better than something like the Razor Crest, in my opinion.
Okay. Well, I hope that was enough of an argument to bump up our stats for.
I could not contribute to that conversation in any way, shape, or form.
Charlie's like, I hate when mom and dad fight.
Yeah, I know. I was just sitting there eating my Oreo chocolates, just listening, going, Jesus.
Yeah. I think part of my problem with the
Passionate.
Razor Crest as well is just how I don't like how deep it is. You know what I mean?
We gotta live in it.
Actually no. I'm really disappointed because in the Minecraft pack that you can buy, that has the Star Wars Minecraft pack, there was a kitchen area in that Razor Crest that was just opposite of the cockpit, and not once in all 2 seasons have we seen that room in The Mandalorian. And
we
honestly,
did see it. We saw it strewn around the floor on Tython.
I've got it. I'm actually really kind of disappointed with what Disney's doing with that. Like, why would you make a ship of that size and not give us the full room tour? There's no behind the scenes. There was nothing like
you want Din's episode of MTV Cribs.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think they were completely missing out.
I mean,
on
you
something
got that.
Like
it was in Minecraft.
Yeah, like I don't know what you know.
I mean, we still haven't really gotten to walk through the Millennium Falcon properly, partially because it can't really exist, based on my understanding. But
I see. Well, if you think looking at the Mando's kitchen in 140p, then that's on you, my man, not on me.
I really just want to know how the artificial gravity in Slave 1 works. Like,
yeah, that was.
Is the living quarters or main area of the ship supposed to always orient back, and then it's always kind of like going up perpendicular to sit in the cockpit, and you're always kind of like off center there, or does it adjust? There's so many questions after seeing it.
That interesting shot where it's like kind of rotating around, like you can see the ship rotating around. I don't know. I don't understand how that works. to be frank, it's very strange.
Yeah,
but it's cool.
These are all questions that I hope will be answered in The Mandalorian.
I still want the answer for that. Well, I guess we got the answer, but I still find it funny the turrets from the Millennium Falcon, how they just like gravity switch when they go through those. Because the turrets are like they point up and down, but like when they sit in them, it's like you're perpendicular with the deck plan.
Yeah.
You climb up a ladder, then the ladder's behind you. Anyway, yeah.
So Din takes off his helmet again here because Mayfeld is getting some PTSD there. Yeah, and then he ends up being fine going up and confronting the guy later.
Yeah.
But it does at least show that like this is. Whereas his identity before was entirely tied up in being Mandalorian, now he has found this thing that is taking more precedence over maintaining those things. And I a little contrived, but I didn't hate it.
No, I didn't hate it either. And this is kind of what you were talking about a few episodes ago with he's kind of figuring out the limits of what does it mean to be Mandalorian? Does he really need to do this don't take off your helmet bullshit when like it's his son basically against like it's not worth following your bullshit. Like Din is the only good father in all of Star Wars, pretty much. Besides Bail Organa. No, honestly, on screen. Right. Besides Bail Organa, and Bail Organa isn't even a good father on screen. Besides for 2 minutes or 30 seconds in Revenge of the Sith, there are no good fathers. So, as a dad, it's actually nice to see like a very positive father-child relationship in the show. And
like even Han and Leia in the books, where it's like Jaina and Jason confront, or Jaina specifically confronts Leia about like, actually, you were kind of terrible parents, and Leia's like, yes, well, I just love my job more than you.
yeah, well, one of you made it, didn't you? What are you complaining about?
Hey, Jason was like in his 30s.
That's true.
It's far enough.
Django is not a bad dad. That's a good point. That Django is actually a good point. But
Boba had to dig his head out of that helmet.
Yeah, kind of nasty. Yeah.
If my dad, when I was 10, got killed wearing a helmet, and maybe that helmet's important to me, but I would not. I don't see a world where I dig out his head from that helmet and think, I'm going to wear this for the rest of my life.
Yeah, well, Boba's built different.
It's something.
He had new armor. Well, he had cleaned up armor.
Yeah, he cleaned up his armor. I thought it looked good.
I had a few comments on my recap video of it saying like, oh, they did something weird to it, but like, yeah, it was, the idea was just like between episodes, Boba gave her a fresh coat of paint there. I did think he looked kind of cartoony for
we've
part
never
of it,
seen his armor look like that, because like in the original trilogy it's all beat up, and I assume it's going to take on some scratches as we go along.
Well, Django, when he had it, it did look a bit more metallic than it does here. It looks like Boba only had like standard latex paint that he just slathered on it.
Like, okay, we got to stop at Coruscant, we got to stop at Corellia. That's where the good Michaels is.
But I guess talking about Din as a father, he gets the location of Gideon, and he's able to send him a message. And I wrote down the text of it.
He's gonna read the thing from Taken, I'm almost certain.
I don't know who you are. I don't know what you want. If you're looking for ransom, I can tell you I don't have money, but what I do have are a very particular set of skills. Skills I have acquired over a very long career. Skills that make me a nightmare for people like you. If you let my baby Yoda go now, that will be the end of it. I will not look for you. I will not pursue you. But if you don't, I will look for you. I will find you, and I will kill you. So as Justin predicted, I did have that pulled up to read.
I've got a question I just thought of. Does Mando call Bo-Katan and be like, I found him? Next episode?
Yes, that's 100% going to happen.
Yeah.
100%.
But yeah.
Actually, no.
No, he doesn't know. He doesn't know. He doesn't know that that's who she's looking for, because she was very specifically going out of her way to not fucking say his name on the off chance that would give away part of the plot.
It's like in the Clone Wars, how like Grievous and Anakin have to go their whole fucking every episode not seeing each other, so Anakin can say in Revenge of the Sith, you're taller than you're shorter than I expected. Yeah.
They should have just had like Anakin throughout every season of the Clone Wars for whatever reason. Like they just contrive something so that he's on stilts whenever he sees Grievous.
You're taller than I was led to believe on previous occasions. I was wearing my heels. But
I did like his little monologue at the end, because obviously they in the previous episode,
the one I just read,
the first one. Well, I mean, like they showed the one that Moff Gideon said in the recap, and then just so they could set it up for his own monologue at the end, which was which was a bit of a fist pump moment for me. Really, that was actually one of my most favorite moments of that episode. I just wish that this episode was actually like a two-parter finale instead of it all being slammed into one. But
yeah, I'm really hoping the last episode will be closer, at least to the hour mark.
Yeah,
where a lot of the episodes this season have been quite short, actually. Like an active runtime of maybe like 30 minutes on the high end.
Yeah.
We had one episode that was, I think, 38 minutes in actual runtime, not counting like the credits and I love the concept art at the end. I'm not saying get rid of the concept art, but maybe throw some more show before that.
Yeah. No, I like the end part too. I mean, I was kind of wondering, like, is that wise? Like, what if he just got the location for Gideon's cruiser right now and he's just gonna fly away? But I mean, I don't know. It's like I like he said like, you don't know how much he means to me or whatever. I was like, oh, that's like the sweetest thing he's ever said. You combine that with the taking the helmet off, like he's coming a long way. Maybe because the child's gone. And this was, by the way, the first episode that Grogu wasn't in at all, because even the end of season 1 or episode 1, he's in there for a smidgen. So
yeah, and I did like the mention of Tanab Yellow Aces. Definitely going to come in the Rogue Squadron movie with a 60 or 70-year-old Wes Jansen.
Do you think General saw him at like 100 and... Well, he wouldn't be 100, but he'd be like in his 80s probably. Let's get him in there.
Yeah. But
I was going to say also like I wanted to talk about the fight scenes as well, because I thought they were much
right.
better in this episode. The combat in last episode especially was very kind of boring for me. It was like, squadrons of stormtroopers rushing the hill. Bet you we'll shoot them seconds before they shoot us.
They did shoot Din quite a bit.
Yeah. But the fight in this was, I thought, much more kind of thoughtful. Especially, I thought it was cool how Din lost his armor, but he was trying to do his old moves. He like tries to put a block up with his forearm, and it just like shatters his armor there because he doesn't have the Beskar.
Yeah, and we did get that. This isn't combat, but like we did get that line that was kind of like played as a joke, but kind of serious. Of like, so is the idea that you can't take your helmet off or you can't show your face, because those are two different things.
But like, actually, yeah,
but,
those are different things.
Yeah. But yeah, I enjoyed the combat last time. I thought it was still fun, but
fair enough.
It was just, there was so much of it, and that was kind of like all I could really think of for the episode. Whereas this, it was a bit more contained, so it did feel a little bit punchier.
Mm-hmm. No, totally. And part of the problem last episode is apparently the script that Jon Favreau wrote was only 13 minutes long. So they're like, well, fuck, let's get some stormtroopers in here, boys.
Yeah.
Dave, are you serious, mate? Lunks it down on the table.
What the fuck? This is a piece of loose leaf. It just says, Baby Yoda, go. Baby Yoda gone.
The first page just says Baby Yoda gone, and the next 12 are just a flip book of him going away.
Baby Yoda, scary robot, sad face.
Baby Yoda, go bye bye, me laugh.
Yeah, I guess, do you guys, Charlie in particular, do you have any thoughts on how they're going to wrap this up this season? Like, do you think he's getting Grogu back this season? Do you think it kind of ends the Gideon arc? What are your thoughts on what we're going to get next week?
I don't think they're going to resolve this all in one episode. I think this is going to be a bit of a cliffhanger for season 3. And I think I would. My first assumption was, before the announcements yesterday, was that Moff Gideon was going to fail, and then Thrawn enters the fray as a bigger foe to overcome. Now, I'm not too sure. I still hope it would still be a bit of a cliffhanger, because I really don't know where they could. I mean, like, I guess they can go on with the Jedi path with Grogu. But maybe it won't be Thrawn. Maybe the Jedi that has been called will appear as the finale instead of Thrawn. So I think that might be the cliffhanger. But otherwise, I don't know. I think it'd be wrapped up too quickly. I hate finales that wrap up so fast that you can't even keep up. You know. Mm-hmm. So that's my opinion. What about you guys?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think he'll probably get Grogu back, but I don't think the Gideon threat will be finished. But I can definitely see them not getting him back as well. But I don't know. I miss him already. I'm looking forward to the first time he sees the Mandalorian's face now as well after this episode.
Yeah. So why else are we watching the Baby Yoda show?
Let them hug, for fuck's sakes. Like, come on. I need my emotional release here.
Go and hug your own, you selfish bugger.
I do. All the time.
Oh. Like, I think we'll get Grogu back, and I think Gideon will have gotten what he needs from Grogu. Because, like, once he has however much blood he needs, then it's like there's no real reason for him to chase down Baby Yoda if they do get him back. Mm-hmm. But we'll now have a reason for them to actively pursue Gideon, either in revenge or to stop him from being force sensitive. evil dude. And I think that'll be kind of how we get Bo-Katan back into it for next season. But yeah.
Or Mando just fucks off, and him and the baby.
That's also
Yoda.
possible.
I like the idea that the Mando's like touching on these big galactic events, and it's just like, nah.
Good.
He's like, do you help us retake Mandalore? He's like, no. We've got to look at a house this afternoon.
I'm glad. I really don't want Mandalorian to become too big for his goddamn boots.
Mm-hmm.
I want to keep it small scale. You know, that's where the fun is.
Well, I think that's a good place to end it. We'll probably do, when we do the finale, we'll have to probably schedule away some extra time, Corey, and we'll cover all the emails we've gotten.
Yeah, so we'll do the finale. We'll try to cover the emails next week. So Charlie, you've been a great guest for these last 3 episodes. You have acquitted yourself without fan fiction, and
it's gonna be. It's a shame I won't be able to discuss the finale with you guys, but
you will, but we just probably won't record all of it.
Gotcha. Well, thank you for having me. It's definitely made watching Mandalorian a lot more fun.
Oh. Well, guys, let us know. Give us your feedback on Charlie. We've gotten a lot of negative stuff so far, so it'd be nice to get some positive ones.
A lot of overwhelming negativity. Like,
we'll definitely have you back on for some of the other shows that we've got coming up that have been announced. For a recap, a revisiting of Heir to the Empire, if you ever do read the book, so we can have a fresh take on it. But it seems like that's unlikely at this point, that you're ever going to finish, or you're ever going to start that book, let alone finish it.
I've got it downloaded. I've been busy boy.
Because that was July that we started talking about that.
With the smallest steps.
Yeah, I know, but the additional deal was that Justin would play League, but I don't really want him to play League, to be honest.
I think those were separate things, weren't they?
No, it was Charlie would read the book and then you'll
I ain't
play
trying
League.
to play no League. Let's be honest.
I don't want you to. You'd hate me and Corey for introducing you to it.
Sounds good.
It's really not worth it. It's a crap game.
All right, guys.
All right.
Don't forget, you can send your emails to us, which we will get to eventually. I promise. Tapcaf Transmissions at gmail.com.
Unless we do just next week, we do Mandalorian, and the week after we do mailbag.
Could be a good idea. I mean, yeah, we'll play it by ear. Also, make sure I haven't seen any really.
That's Christmas. Never mind.
Yeah, I haven't seen any really juicy podcast reviews yet, guys. And to be honest, those are some of the only things that help me through the day. So go to whatever iTunes, leave a very epic review for the podcast, make it 5 stars. And yeah, you mentioned Charlie. Say something about guest host Charlie. You can say whatever you want. Just give it a good rating.
To everyone in the rating type, I kissed my dad for you, Charlie.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for the episode. Thank you for listening, everyone. And we'll be back with more Mandalorian to close out the season. And I swear we will answer those questions. Justin wasn't lying there. But it's going to happen. We'll have so many questions answered. You'll be like, why are they answering so many questions?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Really contribution there.